September 23rd, 2024, 6 p.m. We're on the second floor of City Hall for the Common Council meeting. Agenda's been posted. Media has been notified. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Stephen Jopek.
Here.
Luke Kramer.
Here.
David Holt.
Here.
Gerald Anderson.
Here.
Bob Luder.
Here.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Here.
Leanne Felton.
Here.
Thomas Barnett.
Here.
Chris Hannes.
Here. We do have quorum. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to number 4, which is public comment. I have a Theodore Smith. Yep. Oh. There you go, sir.
Oh, okay. I thought you had to hold it down. Good evening. The question I have is the funding sources. Who are the funding sources? Approximately what percentage does each funding source for the entire Messer area reconstruction project? What do they represent? And more importantly, what are the conditions of this receiving, the city receiving this money? Is there a condition that sidewalk has to be installed as part of their receiving the funding? Thank you.
Thank you. I have a Lee Richardson.
Hi, I'm Lee Richardson, 726 Lakeshore Drive. This is a very important subject for all of us here tonight. And what I'd really like to do is for everybody on the city council to search their hearts in favor of their common citizens here of Rhinelander. As far as grant money goes, what's money compared to what we are about to lose if any of this prospect goes through by adding sidewalks? We all agree streets need improvement, utilities underneath need improvement. Let's do that. But why encroach on your neighbors? Take away their trees, their shrubbery, shorten their driveways. That's our main concern here. That's the only reason we're all here. We don't want the sidewalks in. Fix our streets. That's all we ask of you. But when it comes time to vote for this project, realize who you're hurting here. Every one of these people that are sitting here, including myself. When I bought my property, I bought it because I had the privacy. It's a quiet neighborhood. There's great people in our neighborhood. As you can see here, we're all combined. But all I'm doing is pleading with you right now, when it comes time to vote for this project, no sidewalks. That's all we ask for, is no sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a Wendy.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Bouchain. I live at 903 Thayer Street, which is the corner of Thayer and Rose Street. Lots of points have been brought up to all of you over the last few meetings about the Messer Street project, and they're all really good points. And as my neighbor just stated, you know, there's a lot at stake for all of us here. I just want to leave you all with one thought. Imagine, if you will, if it was your neighborhood and you found that even though maybe, well, whether you did or not, whether you cleaned your garage out or not, whether you keep your cars in the driveway or whether you keep them in the garage, when you find out that you are probably going to lose most of your driveway, how would that make you feel, especially in the wintertime when visitors can't park in your driveway or you have extra cars and they can't be parked in your driveway? Imagine if it's your neighborhood and your landscaping that you put blood, sweat, and tears in was taken away for something that really isn't necessary for your particular neighborhood. Imagine if you're going to lose part of your front yard, part of your side yard, part of your backyard, or maybe all three. Imagine if that's your property. How would you feel about that? Especially, when you know that sidewalks are not really needed for our neighborhood. What if it was your neighborhood? So I just want you to leave you with this thought that, what if it was your neighborhood? How would you feel? All of us feel very strongly about our neighborhood. We love our neighborhood. It's why my husband and I was this wonderful neighborhood. It's quiet, peaceful, shade trees, nice neighbors, and a lot of that will be taken away. And so, we just ask for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a Sue.
My name is Sue Cons, 822 Evergreen Court. I agree with everything that has just been said, and she brought up a point that I was going to bring up. If this was one of your neighborhoods and you felt as strongly as we do, how would you feel? Would you have the backing that we have? Evergreen Court stands to lose a lot, as does the other streets. The trees, the shrubbery, all of that, and to have to redo all of that, that's a substantial cost to all of us. Not just some of us, all of us. So, like I said, I agree with everything that's just been said, so.
Thank you. And then, forgive me if I'm wrong, I believe I have a Terry at 745 Lakeshore. Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Terry Ladua. I live at 745 Lakeshore Drive, and I've been asked to read a letter that was published in 2 of our local newspapers that I wrote. I am one of many neighbors opposed to the sidewalk construction, as well as other parts of the Messer Street project. The project proposes to update water and sewer services, widen streets, install sidewalk, curb, and gutter as part of the Rhinelander Comprehensive Program. These projects take a template approach, applying this template to each neighborhood project. The problem with templates is that it is a one-size-fits-all theory, and it is a famously poor fit when applied to our neighborhoods. Our neighbors will lose privacy as sidewalks will come close to private windows. Driveways will be cut so short, many will lose the ability to park in their own driveways. Other neighbors will lose carefully tended gardens and landscaping. Some of the oldest trees in our neighborhood will literally fall victim to this template. No doubt, underground services are in sore need of an update. And the roads? Well, the city itself points them out as some of the worst in the community. And the alleys? Well, they are in even worse shape than the roads, but they will not be touched at all under this project. What do we get that we don't need is sidewalks. Cars, cyclists, walkers of all types and ages have from the beginning of time shared the road with no conflict. It seems logical to focus on providing well-maintained sidewalks and safe crosswalks along our main thoroughfares, not add more sidewalks that are not needed and will only require repairs in time. In closing, you are probably wondering why you should care if the Messer Street project gets sidewalks. Well, if you happen to live in Rhinelander, This template will be coming to another neighborhood soon. Please speak with your alderperson. Tell them you oppose projects that do not protect the beauty of our neighborhoods. And I would just like to point out that as a group coming before you, we are asking for less, not more. And so a vote for yes will cost less. Thank you for your time.
Was there anyone else for public comment? Okay, not seeing, did any of the alders have any public comment? Okay. Move on to number 5, mayor's comments. I have none at this time. Move on to number 6, administration report.
Nothing outside of what was submitted.
Any questions or discussion on his report? Not seeing. Moving on to number 7, public hearing, none apply for this meeting. Moving on to number 8, presentations. 8A, proposed emergency service building project. I refer to our city administrator first.
Sure. As you may remember, we the council approved working with Veer Becker to find funding sources for a proposed emergency services building. Originally, we were looking City Hall, police, and fire. There's a high price here to be paid, and fire and police definitely need something. So City Hall, we'll sit tight as we work now. But Veer Becker, Andy Kurtz from Veer Becker is here to kind of go over what he's found. So Andy, if you want to come on up.
Thank you. Everybody hear me okay? Excellent. As the administrator said, we were contracted to investigate and evaluate public funding opportunities to help you pay for a public service building. We've worked with the city on a couple of occasions here for funding on previous projects, and this was an opportunity for us to help you with another project. Essentially, we've looked at 4 major funding sources. The Community Development Block Grant Program, which you guys have availed yourselves of previously. We looked also at the USDA Rural Development Program. We looked at the Congressionally Directed Spending Program, and then we also looked at the FEMA Safe Room Program. So a quick summary of the USDA program. Under the USDA CDBG Public Facilities Grant Program, you would be eligible to apply for funds to help fund a public safety building. The maximum grant under that program is $1 million. Okay? Rhinelander is a LMI eligible community, meaning that 51% or greater of the population is classified as low to moderate income. So there's no additional work required for income surveys or special surveys of the community. By default, based on census data, you qualify for that particular program. The annual application deadline for that program would come up in May of next year. So May 22nd of 2025 is when an application would need to be submitted to the Department of Administration. The grant awards typically come out the last week of July, so that would be July of 25. Grant agreements, should you be awarded, would be completed by December of 25. Bidding and contract awards for the construction companies would be in January, February of 26. Construction would be through 26 and 27. Things to note, under the CDBG program, it does trigger the federal Davis-Bacon federal wage rates. It does require the Build America, Buy America program. The billable plans and environmental review must be submitted within the grant application. So if we were to pursue that grant, we would need to work with your architectural company to actually have biddable plans at the time that we do the application. That's a change that was made a couple of years ago by DOA. And that's so that they can facilitate the projects moving forward more quickly. If you do the engineering after the grants award, what they've found is that the projects take longer. So they're looking to get the engineering and the architectural work done up front, as well as any environmental review on the site that you would be working on. Additionally, in 2025, the state is expecting to get $10 million in total grant funding for the entire state of Wisconsin. It's a very, very competitive grant program. Public facilities have been funded through the program, but typically you see those going towards infrastructure projects. However, based on the need that we understand you have with some of the situations with your current structure, we think it would score pretty well. So as we look at a preliminary scoring under the CDBG program, there's a number of factors that go into that. And you'll find that on page 2 of the document. Essentially, we estimate based on the criteria, which is project need, community distress, financial need, project readiness, and the budget and matching funds, you would score between 142 and 157. This year for the 2024 cycle, programs that scored 150 and above were funded by DOA. So we think, based on that, that you guys should be eligible. You are eligible. An application would be potentially successful if you do score at that level. The unknown there is how many other applications would come in and what their scores would be. Again, they're pulling from a pool of $10 million. So that's the CDBG program. Any questions on that program? Okay.
I do have a couple.
Yes.
So the questions I have is, I know through the funding source, it's a percentage grant of the total project. So if we were to do an addition on the existing structures or rehab of the existing structures versus new, would that still qualify, or is this for only new structures?
Depending on the scope of the project, it would be something that would qualify. So if you are eliminating all of the challenges that you have with your current facility through an upgrade or addition, that may be an option. We would talk specifically with DOA about that, but prior to submitting an application and get you a definitive answer from them. Again, the public safety buildings are something that aren't funded as often, but again, given the need that you have, that may be an option that they would look at. It is a $1 million total award. So you would get up to a maximum of $1 million. It's not based on a percentage for other grant programs. So it would be a total $1 million potential grant that you could get under that program.
And then is there a threshold of how big the project has to be to qualify from a dollar amount?
So you have to essentially have, the grant program would be about 33%, so you'd have to have a $3 million project, essentially, to get the full $1 million grant.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So moving on then to the USDA program, funds can be used to purchase, construct, and improve essential community facilities, of which a public safety building would be. You could purchase equipment related to other project expenses. So under that particular program, USDA would be a straight loan program. They do have a small amount of grant funding available, and when I say small, the entire state of Wisconsin was awarded $42,000 in grants from the federal government. Unfortunately, that's not going to pay for a fire station. So that would be a complete loan program. Terms for that program, though, are different from general obligation debt, which would be a 20-year maximum loan. Under the USDA program, you could get a 40-year loan. Extend the life of that loan, reduce your loan payments. Interest rate for that currently is 4%, which is below the market rate. So that would potentially be an attractive option. The USDA program does not have a specific due date. So what we would do is, as we start to put the funding stack together, would be contact USDA, let them know that this is coming, do some pre-approval work with them, and get you set to go. Based on that, we would look to do that prior to May of 25 in conjunction with your CDBG application. Final applications and plans would be in May of 25, bidding and contract awards January, February of 26, just like the CDBG, and construction in 26, 27. So we'd be looking to stack those two programs to maximize your potential benefit there. Under this program, there's other qualifications specifically related to median household income. The state's median household income is $72,458. Rhinelander's is $47,730, which is 65% of that. That qualifies the community, both based on the population size and the income level for a USDA low-interest program. So that is attractive. It is secured by debt levy. It would be a 4% interest rate and could be up to 40 years in terms of borrowing. Questions on the USDA program? Okay. Next program is called the Congressionally Directed Spending Program. This program is where a community submits an application to a U.S. Senator or a U.S. Representative based on them having allocation through the federal appropriations budget on an annual basis, formerly known as earmarks. They've removed that name and replaced it with Congressionally Directed Spending. Essentially what this is you submit an application to one of your U.S. representative delegation. They then put that into the appropriations bill. They weigh those. They get a number of them throughout the year. Based on the scoring for that they do internally, they would submit that as part of the federal budget. Under that program, what we've seen, a number of communities very much like yourself have received up to a $6 million grant for public facilities like the public safety building that you're looking at. We have a couple in southwestern Wisconsin that we've helped secure those grants for. Both of them were awarded at $6 million. That grant program, right now, Senator Baldwin is the only one of our 2 senators that accepts and offers that program. So depending on what happens in November, you could apply in the spring. That cycle would be an application in the spring. It would be in conjunction then with the 26-27 construction season. It would likely be awarded through the USDA program. So what they do is it's not just a check, they award it through one of the existing funding programs. So it would be a grant. I mentioned the $45,000 that USDA got previously. This would be a specific grant through USDA to the city of Rhinelander. So likely that would come through that particular program. Application deadline for that, the last couple of years for Senator Baldwin has been February of 2025. So it would be in advance of the applications that we would do for CDBG and for USDA. The turnaround cycle, once you submit an application to Senator Baldwin, typically about 30 days before they let you know that they are advancing that to Washington. So they get 100 applications, they advance about 15 of them. So again, based on your situation, based on the information that we share with them, the scale and scope of the project, that's how they basically determine which ones they're going to move forward. They historically have been very supportive of public safety structures. So, any questions on the congressionally directed spending?
Not so much a question, Andy, but just a comment. Chief Denancor has been communicating with Senator Baldwin's office already, so he's pretty far out in front of this. So thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
All right, excellent. The last program that I mentioned is the FEMA Safe Room Grant Program. This program awards up to $500,000 to construct a community safe room in a public safety building. What a community safe room is essentially a room that is tornado proof and hurricane proof. We don't have to worry so much about hurricanes up here, but we do have to worry about tornadoes. That particular structure doesn't have to be a dedicated space within the building. So in the case of the public safety building, a training or meeting space that is in the public safety building would be purposed and constructed as the community safe room. And then there would be a $500,000 grant potential coming to help with that particular cost. To build a room like that costs more, hence the grant coming into the program. The challenge with that particular program is it is a very long grant cycle. They are right now probably out into the 27-28 construction season if we were to submit an application right now. So that is one item that we'll want to kind of get some determination from you as to how you would like to proceed on that, given the length of that particular grant horizon. Questions on the FEMA program? That is actually managed through the Wisconsin Emergency Management, so the application goes to them with money coming from FEMA. Questions? Okay. Last thing on the item that you've got here in section I is just example funding scenarios. We laid it out really in cost options. So the lowest cost option, the medium cost option, and the most expensive option. Within those options, we tiered out the projected construction cost of the public safety building at $15 million, $12 million, and $10 million. Based on the lowest cost option, which would be the CDBG grant application and award there, the congressionally directed spending grant, the CDBG application, the FEMA Safe Room grant, and then a USDA lease revenue bond. Under example A, at a $15 million building, you'd have about a $7.5 million loan that you would need to take out. 4% over 40 years is $378,000 annually. On a $12 million structure, it's a $4.5 million revenue bond. That'd be a $227,000 annual cost. And under a $10 million structure, it's a $2.5 million debt at $126,000 a year. Interest rates are set by USDA, fluctuate monthly to quarterly. With the latest interest rate reduction, we would expect that there's going to be a lower interest rate coming from them soon, which benefits you in all three of those scenarios. Questions on that?
I do have one. So regarding some of these grants, is there a minimum of how many times you could apply for them?
No, the only caveat is under the CDBG PF program. If you've received a grant award in the last 2 years, you can't apply in the next cycle. So it's got to be 2 years from your last grant award before you can reapply. But if you were to apply in spring of '25, you're not awarded. You can apply in spring of '26 and '27 and '28 until you get it.
Well, I was thinking from along the lines of the fire station is in our most dire need. So it'd be one of those of, let's say we scale the project back just to build a new fire station, apply, get more grant to reduce the debt payment, and then 2 to 3 years later, as you explained, apply again for a police station. So to kind of phase the project in and to maximize the grant opportunity versus debt. So,
That is a possibility. The only caveat to that is the impact potentially in the congressionally directed spending. Based on the size and scale of the project, the grant award typically would mirror that a little bit.
Okay.
So if the scope is reduced for that particular grant, the award may get reduced also. So the numbers may ultimately come out to be about the same. Depending on the grant program.
okay.
Okay? Medium cost option would be assuming that you don't get the congressionally directed spending grant. So Senator Baldwin doesn't get reelected and that program essentially goes away. Under that particular environment, again, at a $15, $12, and $10 million building, you would have, what's the difference here? Oh, excuse me, that's the highest cost option. The medium cost option is you do a 20-year amortization instead of a 40-year amortization on the USDA loan. Okay? And that's certainly an option, but it does increase the annual cost. So if you were to do a 20-year note on a $7.5 million USDA general obligation bond, that'd be a $551,000 annual payment. A $4.5 million general obligation bond to USDA would be $331,000. A $2.5 million general obligation bond over 20 years would be $183,000. So that's the medium cost option, the difference there being the term of the loan and the structure of the loan. A USDA revenue loan versus a USDA general obligation loan. General obligation loan would go against the general obligation capacity of the city. The USDA revenue bond would not, because you would be running that through a redevelopment authority. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Highest cost option is you don't get any of the bonds. You don't get any of the grants. You don't get any of the additional funding. $15 million project with a $15 million loan, 40 years at 4%, $757,000. $12 million project, $12 million loan, $606,000, and a $10 million loan would be $505,000. So we tried to lay out a couple of scenarios there, giving you price variability on the cost of the project, as well as funding options for that particular program. So on the last page, essentially, our recommendations based on the options you have available would be to submit a congressionally directed spending application in the spring of 2025, if that program is still available, to create and submit a preliminary application to USDA under a redevelopment authority. Third item would be to submit a CDBG application in the spring of 25. And then fourth would be to begin as quickly as possible the FEMA Safe Room Grant Program. There's some costs associated with each one of those particular items as you move down that list. If you, for example, didn't want to do the RDA option and just wanted to do the general obligation, that's your medium cost program. Any questions on that?
I have one for you, Andy.
Yeah.
So how much, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, so I do apologize. How much do you think the design for this should run, or generally runs, or normally runs? I'm guessing you get
to actually design the fire station?
Yeah.
Depends on the methodology that you use for it. If you use a design build approach, typically what you'll see is the architect may waive that fee, knowing that they're going to make it up on the construction side of the project. If you do a design bid build type application, you're going to design it, you'll have a cost for that, you'll have to bid it, and then you would have to bid it. We're not an architectural firm, so I don't know that I could give you a real good number as to what that would be. I know you're working with Brian on that. He could probably give you a pretty good number on that.
Okay.
I know we've done several fire stations through these programs and worked with them on the funding side. So in Viroqua, for example, Viroqua, Wisconsin, it's a customer of ours. We helped them get a $6 million congressionally directed grant. I believe their total cost for their fire station was just shy of $10 million. And they did it as a design build type project, and all their design cost was baked into the $10 million. So they didn't have any upfront design cost for that. Had they gone with a different architectural firm or used a different methodology, specifically to design bid build, they would have had some cost probably upfront, but I'm not in a position to really give you an idea of what that cost is.
The other question I guess I would have is, and if you covered this, I apologize. There's a lot of information here. Does land acquisition covered in any of this? Any of these grant funds or anything?
So land acquisition is an eligible cost for the programs. We do not, we did have a number in that 15, 12, or 10. That was a number that you and Brian had laid out in terms of potential cost for the property, although I don't know exactly where the property is, but there was a number that was put in there for land acquisition. That is an eligible cost under CDBG. It is an eligible cost under USDA. So under one of those two programs, we'd be able to get it in there and make it an eligible cost.
Thank you.
Yep.
So a question I have is, it looks like the first deadline for submittal would be February 2025. At what point would you need direction from this body to meet those deadlines?
We would probably look to have direction from you in a November timeframe. The reason for that is the FEMA program is one that we probably would need to do sooner than the grant application for the congressionally directed spending, based on the long horizon that they have. However, going and doing an application for that is premature because we haven't even gotten to the point of designing the building to know what the building's going to cost. So to submit into the program, what is the building going to cost? What's it going to look like? We don't know that yet. So option one or recommendation one would be, try to get to that point where you decide what you're going to build and how quickly you're going to build it. Then we can get to FEMA. In terms of the congressionally directed spending, yes, that would be February. If you had all of that lined up by end of November, early December, then that gets us to be able to apply to both of them simultaneously. We would get the FEMA first, and then the congressionally directed spending we would do in that February timeframe. Again, pending outcome election in November.
Any of the aldermen have any discussion or questions? Well, thank you so much.
All right, it's okay with you. I'm going to head back south.
Enjoy.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to our second presentation. So this is kind of a unique scenario. It's the first time that I know of that we had a civic group, for lack of a better term, organize and present for council. So this is regarding a Messer Street project. So Matt Campbell, on behalf of their group, is going to come up and give you a presentation of some concepts they would like to see out there being built. At that point, I'm going to open for Q&A for the board to Matt to see if you guys have any questions. Then we're going to move into Mark Barden, who has a revised design after we had a couple of hearings here, and where we had feedback from residents, different members. Q&A again back with Mark, and then if there's any follow-up questions for Matt or Mark, we have that discussion. Just for everyone kind of knows the scope of this. So Matt, if the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Hannes, and good evening, Council. My name is Matt Campbell, as you probably all know, and I stand here today representing my neighborhood, and I'm here, and I think that that's a sign that the system that we have set up is working, right? As concerned neighbors, we've come to you to address a city ordinance that is there for a reason, to keep things moving smoothly, but that ordinance also contains discretion, like wording for discretionary administration in certain circumstances. So, for example, in section 3.10.07 of the ordinance, grants you, the council, the flexibility to adapt the rules to fit certain unique situations, like the one that we're facing today. In fact, I think Mark in his presentation actually mentioned that in the packet, which I was able to read today. So we believe that through collaboration, that you've already been very kind to be opening dialogue with us, walking our neighborhood with us, having these meetings with us, we've kind of come to a really interesting situation and a rare circumstance where we think that we can save the city money and increase happiness of the neighbors. So it's kind of a cool intersection of good things. So as I kind of mentioned, as actually Mayor Hannes mentioned, I presented to the council in the packet this past weekend a proposal that we have put together that could be an option that we could look at for re-putting our streets back after we've finished all the work that we know is necessary. One of those options is to put the footprint of the street back exactly how it is. So do not increase any of the width of the streets, do not include the sidewalks, as you've heard many times, so I will try not to belabor that point. And here are some of the benefits of that. The first, major tax savings, or major cost savings to the taxpayers. So Mark, you can fact check me on this. I heard this secondhand, that the plan to only include one side of sidewalks that you've presented saves about $600,000. So to me, that stands to reason that if we take away both, we might save $1.2 million, and that's in addition to anything we might save should we not have to destroy extra greenery to widen the streets, lay the extra pavement, all of those types of things. So at least $1.2 million can be shaved off of that $10.4 million budget that we're looking at. And so simply by just removing the sidewalks and not widening streets, we're saving at least 12% of our budget that we're looking at. And that doesn't affect the $400,000 grant money that we've talked about at a previous meeting. For those of you that were in the August 14th meeting, we talked about how there's $400,000 of grant money, but that money is still available to us should sidewalks be included on the north side of Rose and on the west side of Messer, on the park side of the Hodag Park area. So the public area or the public land that currently is there. In addition, there's kind of a hidden cost that we haven't talked about that is a cost not on the taxpayers in general, but one directly on the homeowners. And that is that 23 new net homes, if we go with Mark's new proposed plan that was in the packet, will now be having additional sidewalks put in. And conservatively, I was trying to figure out, well, what might that cost if somebody, because many of our neighbors have raised the concern that they're going to need to hire people to shovel these sidewalks to keep them maintained. And then obviously our own labor also has value. So let's assume $30 per snow removal, and there's 15 times per year on average over the last 50 years that Rhinelander averages at least 1 inch of snowfall, which would then be necessary to shovel to keep it clean so we don't ice over our sidewalks. If you assume all of those things, we have about $700,000 in costs that are directly placed on the homeowners. But if you also do some pretty standard things like include a 3% inflation, which is in line with historic rates, it's well over $1 million at that point that's directly placed on the homeowners who really, as you can see, do not want these sidewalks. In addition, we've heard lots of great arguments from folks in our neighborhood about how this is going to affect the charm of our neighborhood. It can affect each of us individually in different ways. Some of us will be losing parking spaces. Some of us will be losing significant portions, 2-3 sides of the area in which we've maintained for years, kept groomed, added our own shrubbery to. Some of the shrubbery that's on our own property is going to be affected when we have to widen these areas. So we're going to lose some things that we've spent personal money on, personal labor on. And that's in addition to people like me who have kids. It's a safe place right now for my kids to be able to play in my front yard, but my house in particular, should we put sidewalks in, we'll lose 16 feet on one side and 20 feet on the other, and not really much space there anymore for them to play on our property, or at least adjacent to our property. As for safety concerns, we decided to look up in the DOT's database, thanks to a suggestion from y'all. We haven't seen a single incident of any sort of pedestrian accident to this point in the history of at least over the life of the database that the DOT maintains. And so we kind of feel that there's kind of just a win-win situation here. We have an option to save money, to increase our happiness, to keep the neighborhood charming, to keep it safe, and we still get a walkway that goes around the park, which is what the most people actually really want, is that there would be sidewalks that connect to the paths that already exist in Hodag Park. So I just wanted to, again, I don't want to take your time. I know there's going to be questions from you, so I'll just kind of wrap up. But again, thank you for your time and attention. I hope this has been as productive over the course of the last couple of months for you as it has been for me. I've learned a lot about the process and how this goes, and you've all been very accommodating for that. I just hope it hasn't been burdensome to you. I really appreciate how much you've all been very active in this. And as Mayor Hanna said, I'm available to answer any questions or concerns, but while I just want to make sure that I emphasize I am presenting this plan. It's a collective effort, and my neighbors can very well answer some of these questions better than I can. So if possible, I would also like, I don't know if this is possible. If I need to answer, that's great, but I think there's probably plenty of circumstances that may come up where other folks might be better suited to answer than I am. But that's all I have for now. Thank you. Is there anything you would like before I go sit back down? I don't know if you want me to stay standing up here if there's questions.
Yeah, does any council member have any questions or comments for Matt? Mr. Jopik?
There was going to be a time after Mark presented that you said that we could ask questions as well, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it looks like Matt has two different options here, option 1 and 2, which would be page 17 in your packet, and 18 would be 1. Looks like 19, 20 would be option 2 they're presenting.
Correct. And if you'd like me to touch on that too, sorry to cut you off, Mayor Hannes, but option 1 is the option that we would prefer. We'd strongly prefer option 1, which is basically just put the streets back at its current footprint. Don't move anything with like evergreen having to be into the center of the plot line. We would suggest maybe perhaps just redrawing the plot line instead. Seems a little easier and more cost effective. No sidewalks, basically everything back as is. The second option is an option that we've discussed that was brought up at the August 14th meeting, which would include turning many of the streets into one-way streets, which would allow for narrower street paths, and then we could include things like a shared walking and biking lane, which would give pedestrian access in the street. So those are kind of the differences between those two options.
Okay, well, looks like at this point they don't have any questions or comments, so
Thank you.
We'll come back if needed. So going on to the second point, it would be Mark Barden from Town and Country Engineering. So for Mark's, pretty much after the couple public hearings we had, we got some feedback and we did a revised plan. It's not per our standard policy, but it was one in this unique scenario we thought would be better suited. Since then, you know, Mr. Campbell with his group came forward with theirs, and that's why we're bringing this all back to you to get some direction. So, Mark?
Thanks, Mayor. First off, I'd like to answer the gentleman's question from tonight about funding. And for council, if you're not aware, so where we sit right now, this is a $10.4 million project is the budgeted amount. We were allocated $6.5 million around there from rural development. Just over 5 is loan funding, and just over 1 is grant funding. Rural development is not dependent on any of the street discussions we're having tonight. You can have sidewalk, not have sidewalk, you could put gravel roads in, they don't care. It's all utility based. Additional funding that we're seeking is Safe Drinking Water and Clean Water Fund. Those are both through DNR. Safe Drinking Water is for the water main portion of the project. Clean Water Fund is for the sanitary portion. Both of those funding programs also pay for some of the roads, some of the road work. Those also are not dependent on the road, whether there's sidewalk in there or not. The one grant that the city was awarded is through Wisconsin DOT. That's LRIP program. That was a $400,000 grant. That's a 50-50 grant, meaning DOT will provide $400,000. The city has to match $400,000. What's dependent on that grant is, as Matt stated, sidewalk on the park side from Messer, or on Messer from Hodag Park to Hodag Park Drive to Rose, and on Rose, again, park side from Messer down to the lake. Also along with that, Messer and Rose in those areas, because there's street construction with that, those have to be put in at 36 face-to-face. That's how the grant was submitted. You can ask for a change on that grant. If you were to go wider, they wouldn't have a problem. To narrow it down, they may not offer the funding in that situation because you're decreasing the costs, and that's the grant amount was based on total cost of that project. So recap, the only grant that is affected by this discussion is the $400,000 street construction grant from DOT. Just going through Matt's stuff. Yeah, I will do a little fact checking. Kind of echoing there. The sidewalk, I went through and I ran the numbers, went through our original estimate, ran the numbers, and eliminated all sidewalk. If we eliminate all sidewalk in the project area, that's a savings of $360,000. What it comes to is about $25,000 per block. You can do some easy math on that. If you eliminate sidewalk on one side, it's $180,000. If we were to eliminate all the sidewalk and put the roads back at 30-foot face-to-face, there's a savings of $494,000. That is considering that Rose and Messer would have to be put back at 36, and you would be getting that grant. If you didn't put those back at 36, you would be losing the grant, and your overall savings would be about $200,000. I have this written down, and I think Matt made this clear when he was putting together costs for the snow removal. He was talking more private costs. There would be no significant cost savings to the city for snow removal for a narrow road. I do want to say this just for clarity. I know this was brought up at the public meeting, but when we're talking about the improvements in the residents' yards, we are talking about the city right away. So all these improvements are within the right of way. I know from the residents' perspective that that's still their yard, but just so the council is aware, all the major improvements are within the right of way. When we blend in and we do utility reconnections, we will go on to private property and do some blending, but everything we're discussing with sidewalk, curb is within that right of way. I would also like to point out that if we were narrower and we eliminated sidewalk, that may save a significant amount of trees in there, but there are trees that would be lost just because of the utility construction, depending on where the utilities are and where the independent services are, the sewer and water laterals. Particularly if they're in the right-of-way, all the connections are made at the property line. We'd have to make those connections, and there are times where we disrupt the roots of those trees, and whether we kill them at that point, it's always wise to pull them out, particularly if they're in the city right away, because they eventually will die. Generally, when we hit the roots, it's on the roadside. When those trees die, they will fall towards the house. So we like to get those out for safety concerns. Real briefly, I'm going to talk through the options that Matt and the residents presented. Option 1 with a no sidewalk and 30 face-to-face. I would just like to point out, as I did in my memo, the sidewalk and the 36 is a requirement of the ordinance, the city ordinance. The reasoning for all that is detailed in my memo, and I'll kind of go through that briefly as well. Option 2 with the one-way streets, I would not recommend one-way streets in the residential area. One-ways are best suited for heavily congested areas, and in a residential area, it can lead to confusion, particularly with non-residents. Large events, people typically don't like them. You'll see a lot of residents going the other way, and it leads to higher speeds. So when you don't have traffic coming from the other direction, people tend to go faster. The other thing, if we were to reduce it to 28 feet and you made these three streets one way, there's no going back. Once you have them one way and you narrow them up, you're not going to tear those streets out and reconstruct them. So just a consideration, and if the council does consider one way, I would consider at the minimum putting them in at 30 feet. So if the residents change their mind, you want to go back to two-way, at the very minimum, it's at the same footprint it's at now. With one-way streets, the city cost for plowing would go up because there's more rounds they have to make, and something that residents should consider, and they may not have, the plows will only plow in one direction in that case with a one-way. So as the option was drawn up, That would be the non-lakeside people on Lakeshore would get all the snow. On Evergreen, it would be on the Lakeshore side, not in the residence driveway, which is good for the residents on that street. And on Messer, everything would be on the east side. So just consideration for the residents, just so they're aware of that, where the snow would go. So our initial design was sidewalk both sides, 36 face-to-face, everything centered on the right-of-way. All per ordinance. The reasoning behind that, when we center the streets on the right-of-way, that's in anticipation of sidewalk both sides. So you can't have the street not centered on the right-of-way and have sidewalk both sides. So that's the main purpose of centering the street. The street width increases to 36. The reasoning behind that is mainly to get parking in. So at a 36-foot width, you can comfortably get one side parking and an unobstructed flow of traffic. I'm using Eagle Street for an example. So because I drive Eagle Street at least twice a day. So Eagle Street is 36 face-to-face. There are always cars parked on both sides. If there's traffic coming from both directions, one opposing lane of traffic always has to slow down, or generally slows down, let the other one go through. So that'd be 36 face-to-face with parking on both sides. You're going to get obstructed traffic. If you have parking on one side, you get a free flow of traffic, meaning traffic won't stop when they're coming from the opposite direction. Also, during the winter months, we do get a significant amount of snow. The city generally does not push the snow all the way up to the curb. The reason for that is because we get so much snow, they can only pile it so high with the plows. So eventually that road narrows up, and we see it all the time. And on the arterials, they will go in and they'll clean off those terrace areas to make room for the additional snowfall. But on the local roads, they do not. So if you're at a 30-foot width right away in the winter, you're probably at a 24-foot width, just spitballing. So it adds for it makes up for that additional snow storage. For the sidewalk, again, per ordinance, sidewalk, this council and previous councils have really pushed for a walkable community. Without sidewalk, you don't have a walkable community. That is mainly because you have no ADA compliance. You cannot run a wheelchair. It's not ADA compatible to be on the road with a wheelchair. The bike lanes that were thrown in with the design, that's a good idea if you have biking, but I would also suggest sidewalk along with that. Shared bike lane on a roadway is not ADA compliant unless there's a barrier. That barrier would either have to be a wall or a separation. So that's where the sidewalk would give you that separation. That's where you meet your ADA compliance. The usage, everybody here has been around the Hodag Park area. I probably don't have to tell anybody this, but with the improvements being made at Hodag, I think the assumption is that you're going to get more pedestrian traffic going to Hodag. It's a big draw for the community. And the sidewalk is there for the community, not just the neighborhood. The width of the terrace, there's been a lot of discussion. We discussed this at the public meeting, and I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of the residents behind me about the terrace area. Some have suggested moving that sidewalk closer to the curb. Yes, we can certainly do that. If you have the sidewalk right next to the curb, that is ADA compliant because that curb is a barrier. I pointed out in some of these discussions, and just to make residents aware, that terrace is there for snow storage also. So the residents are required to maintain that snow, or maintain that sidewalk. When the plows push snow onto the sidewalk, every snowfall, they're going to have feet of snow to remove out that sidewalk. If that's not a concern about residents, or from residents, I mean, they're aware of it, as long as they can maintain it, that's fine. But it would be ADA compliant. Another reason we have the terrace in the residential areas is just to make it look residential. If you have sidewalk right on the curb, it gives it a commercial industrial look. If you go less than 5 feet, and Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, 5 feet is generally what we look for to plant trees back in the terrace. So the idea on this project in particular, any trees that we remove, if the residents want trees back, the city would pay to put trees back in that terrace. If it's less than 5 feet, it's just not a good idea or not possible to plant trees in that terrace. So with all that said, that is a typical design for a Rhinelander project per your ordinance. As the mayor said, we sat down, the mayor and I and Patrick and Max, after the public meeting, listening to all the concerns, the conversations that I've had with residents. I think the option that we put forth for the council's consideration, sidewalk on one side makes sense in a lot of areas. First of all, it's consistent with considerations the city has made on past projects where it's 36 face-to-face, and let's move the sidewalk where it makes sense. What you're doing with this is you're providing ADA compliance. People can get around that neighborhood. You're allowing for that wider road for the reasons that I outlined. And it gives us some flexibility. There's, when we're talking about impact to the neighborhood, there's some very realistic concerns, I would say, from residents. When I look at that south side of Rose, there's that big line of mature arborvitaes. To pull down all those arborvitaes for sidewalk doesn't make sense to me if we could put sidewalk on one side. Now, it's a requirement, the grant, to put it on the north side. I think that's a perfect fit for Rose. Put the sidewalk on that side, save that line of trees. Same thing on Evergreen. Evergreen is the major, I'm going to call it a problem, the major problem for this project, because it's so far off center line of the right-of-way. It's about 10 feet west of the center line where it should be, meaning the existing curb is about 5 feet off the right-of-way. Matt brought this up, and other people have brought that up, just redoing the plat, the right-of-way plat. I wouldn't suggest that. I think it's unnecessary. If the council decides not to center it, you don't have to redo the plat. If you were to do that, it'd be expensive, and you would have to take land from people on the lake shore. So it's up to the council where that road goes. You don't have to redo the plat of survey. What we're recommending on Evergreen, because our original design put that sidewalk about 23 feet closer to the homes on the east side, what we're recommending is still widening the road, eliminate the sidewalk on the west side, because the people on Lakeshore would have to maintain that, and there's not a real good way that could even get to that sidewalk to maintain it. If we could keep the sidewalk or the curb on the west side where it is right now, 5 feet off the right-of-way, widen that road, put the sidewalk in, we're down to 16 feet closer to the homes. Which is still a large amount, I'm sure, from the residents' perspective, but we're saving 8 feet roughly from our original design. And we're providing the ADA access for residents and other pedestrians in the area. The other thing I would say is with this, the road centered on the right-of-way is based on sidewalk both sides. If the council chooses to go with sidewalk on one side, that gives us some flexibility with the road. There are some residents on Lakeshore that if we were to put the sidewalk in on one side, it makes sense to put it on the Lakeshore side. However, if we can center that sidewalk with the road closer to the center of the right-of-way, we can get a little further away from their homes. We'd impact the people on the east side of the road a little more, but relatively speaking, the lakeside people would have more impact because we can only move it over maybe 3 feet. But I think there's some flexibility on all these roads where, if the council were to choose this option and give us and staff some flexibility to work with residents and make this fit better, we could certainly do that. So that's the option that we threw out there. At this point, it's up to the council. I would say that this option is very consistent with what we've done on past projects and listening to the concerns of residents, and I think this may be a decent compromise.
I do have a couple questions for you, Mark. So, one, in the right-of-way, if a tree is removed by the city, no matter where the sidewalk, if there is a sidewalk, wouldn't it be eligible to still plant a tree in the right-of-way if it was removed for a project?
That would be at the city's discretion, but I would think yes.
Okay. And then, actually, that's the only question I have for you. I actually have one for both of our chiefs. One would be for our fire chief, which would be, to your knowledge up to this point, have you ever had an issue with the current width of the streets hindering your ability to put out a fire or respond to a fire?
Not that I've seen, but that doesn't mean that it won't happen. True. I mean, it's just worst case scenario on anything. We'd rather be proactive in something like that than reactive. We don't want to be putting hose through car windows and putting our ladder truck on top of car hoods and stuff like that if we have to put them out. So the wider we have it, the better it is, especially if you're going to have parking on both sides of the street. So the average car width is, 5 feet, 8 inches, I think is what I just looked up. So if you think about that, you're putting 11 feet, you're taking 11 feet from the road right there with cars parked on both sides.
But currently, no issues.
Currently, we have no issues right now.
And then similar for our chief of police, have you seen an uptick in this neighborhood for side swipes, dents, where because of the width of the road, currently it's causing damage to property?
No. I've patrolled that neighborhood since '93 when I was a patrolman. I looked, there was one accident in 2018. There's very seldom are there vehicles parked on the streets in that area. The other issue is I'm sure some of the older members are a community member, but Mason Street used to be one way. And when that was reconstructed, it was changed to two-way traffic. We can patrol either way, whether it's one way or it's open to traffic both ways. Parking has not been a problem. Enforcement hasn't been a problem. Pedestrian traffic hasn't been a problem. The neighborhood has been pretty quiet. We don't get a ton of calls in that area. So we're flexible from enforcement purposes, however it's set up.
Thank you. And then the last question was for Mark. So I know at this point, widening the streets from a snow removal point of view, you said doesn't really have a cost difference based on you doing more loops if it's a one-way, what have you. But if we're widening all these streets by roughly 5 feet, you're in theory creating a whole new street, which from a maintenance point of view doesn't sound to be huge, but the curb and gutter, the utilities should outlive the blacktop by at least 1 mill and overlay, if not 2. So kind of the question I have is, yeah, there might not be a cost right now, but when we go to mill and overlay all these streets, we're in theory adding another street with a blacktop by widening these. So, I mean, there's a cost there, right? Because unless we can guarantee we have grants in the future to cover this, that's a cost.
Yeah, there's some actual maintenance costs. I mean, you could look at crack filling. You know, if you have 30 feet versus 36, there's additional crack filling costs. If you want to chip seal, and there's additional costs for that width, absolutely. You could also say, and Justin may be a good spokesman for this, you know, additional width, you need additional salt, right, to cover that area. So, yeah, there are some real costs, absolutely, with a wider street.
So for council, that would be my only, you know, as you look at our budgets, as we're in the budget process, you know, widening these streets would have additional costs. That's more strain on our general fund, that's more strain on our prep tax, that's more strain on our labor. Now, is the reward worth the investment? That's up to you to decide, but something to keep in mind. I don't know if anyone has any questions, or Mr. Jopek?
I have a few. The first one is when the tree dies, if the tree dies, because we're digging up utilities, we're doing all that stuff, and a tree's roots get cut, and it's gonna die in the future. We don't know that. we don't remove it, say we don't end up doing sidewalks, and that tree starts to die because the utility work kills it off, who will be held responsible for that tree removal? Because like especially over in that area, there's some pretty large trees, and I had some trees removed from my yard not too long ago. It wasn't very cheap, and they were kind of on the small side. So I guess I'm trying to figure out if that tree dies as a result of the utility work, and we don't remove it because we want to preserve these older trees, who will be responsible when it dies, if it dies?
There's a couple scenarios there. So if it's in the right of way, generally if we disturb the roots, we'll just pull it. So usually on these projects, any trees within the right of way, they're gone right from the get-go. If we disturb roots on a tree that's on private property or close to that property line, what we will generally do is talk to the homeowner. So if it's on private property, it's their responsibility. But if we damage those roots during construction, we will give the homeowner an option. Look, the roots are damaged. We don't feel it's going to live. The city will take that down at the city's cost. That's during construction. And we'll always throw the caveat out there. We don't know if it's going to die. And we may bring Tom out to take a look at it. And Tom's more of an expert on trees than I am. He can give them some advice. If the homeowner decides to keep the tree, knowing that the roots are damaged, it's then their responsibility in the future to remove that tree if that's on private property.
Okay, and thank you, I appreciate that. So then, I went down there a week or two ago and was kind of looking around. I was talking with Matt. There's a pretty big tree along the curb line, real beautiful tree right there on Messer, and it's not one of the ones that's proposed to get a sidewalk. But like that one, I assume is in the right of way because it's right along the curb. That would be one of those ones where if the roots get cut, it would just get pulled.
And if it's right next to the curb, we would just pull it.
Okay.
Because what'll happen when we install that curb, so the back of that curb is a foot tall. We undercut below that an additional roughly 2 feet. So at the, and that's 2 feet behind the curb. So if you go 2 feet behind the curb, and you measure down 3 feet, if that tree is within 5 feet of that curb, you're severely damaging those roots. So if that tree is close to the curb, we would just expect it's going to go, because with our cutting subgrade to build that road, we're going to damage the roots.
And how many trees are we talking just due to not sidewalk work or anything, just utility work? Or like what's the estimate on trees that could be in this situation or in that circumstance in the neighborhood?
I don't have an estimate.
Okay. A fourth question, I don't know if that was my third. A fourth would be, in general, what happens if we aren't ADA compliant? Like, is there...
You don't have to be ADA compliant. That's just something that council has, and not necessarily this council, but past councils for sure, they want to get the city more ADA compliant. They want to make it accessible for everybody. ADA compliance, the only place, if you're federally funded, if you have a federally funded program, you need to be ADA compliant. Now that's generally with a DOT funded project. That's not necessarily the case with this DOT funding. But there are certain programs that make you put everything in ADA compliant. There are additional considerations for reconstruct in an area like this. Sometimes you just can't get ADA compliance. Just due to blending into the next street, you can't get it. So long-winded answer to your question, short answer is there's no requirements through the funding agencies for ADA compliance on this project.
Mr. Barnett?
I have a question for Tom Duro. Being our city forester, what are your thoughts on the removal of these large, very old trees?
So Mark's correct. When the tree is like within 10 or 20 feet of the roadway and they're digging it out, particularly the mature trees, their roots are going to extend underneath the sidewalk into the street. And, you know, we had several examples here on King Street and Oneida Avenue, where there was just no way, and they were on private property. Now, trees that are in the city right-of-way, technically they're city trees, and I did go through and sort of count them according to Mark's plan. So on Lakeshore, on the lakeside, where he had proposed one sidewalk, there's only 4 trees, but they're mature trees, and I'm questioning, even if you didn't put the sidewalk in, you may lose those trees anyway, because again, the roots are going to extend out. Evergreen probably has the most impact. There's 17 trees, mature trees, that would probably have to come down if you put sidewalk on the Thayer Street side of Evergreen. Messer, east or west, it doesn't matter, lakeside or, and I can give you the numbers here too later, either the lakeside or the Thayer Street side, it's about 10 trees. Give or take, it just kind of depends on whether some of those trees are, roots are extending out. Rose and Pearl, again, 8 to 9 trees on each side of Pearl, and 7 or 8 trees on Rose. There is no right-of-way on the south side of Rose. It's right up against there. And then the other thing are the hedges. Some of those hedges are quite mature, cedar and other things, where the roots again are going to extend underneath the street because the hedges are right on the curb. We're going to lose some of those trees regardless of whether we put sidewalks in. So no doubt it's a big impact, but I think I've convinced City Council that we should plan to replace the trees on future street projects and include it in the cost of the street project. It took me 4 years to repopulate Wabash, and so it, with the help of some grants and some other things, we're able to do it. I think we should just plan the replacement trees as we do these street projects.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I thank you for the numbers. In your opinion, do you think that this project is worth losing all those trees?
Well, you're going to lose trees no matter what when you dig such a big hole. There are benefits to having sidewalks and trees that benefit everybody. I don't live in the neighborhood, and I do respect the people's opinion here. By the way, I'm just a volunteer. I'm not a city employee.
Man, I just work here.
I do respect their opinion, but there are a lot of benefits, including health benefits, to walking safely on the street with a sidewalk. So a little known fact too, that trees will extend the life of your pavement just by reducing the rainfall impact and the sun and the weathering that occurs. So shaded streets do help street trees. There are other issues, such as sewer issues and other things that you have to look out for, but it's all about the right tree in the right space. I work with homeowners all the time when they want a tree or don't want a tree, and I get both sides of it. And we have so many places we can plant trees. Like Mark said, we don't force a tree on anybody who doesn't want one.
Thank you, sir. And I got a question for Matt. So I've been on a roller coaster ride with this whole subject. Looking at the ordinance, obviously the city has ordinances. We have ordinances for a reason. But I also see your side of it and the passion behind the movement to kind of do the plan. And I just want to, I just kind of want your feelings, if you can speak for the group. I don't think everybody's going to get everything they want, just being candid. Is that something you guys can come to terms with? Is that something that can be acceptable if it's even just met halfway?
The plan, as it's been presented by Mark, if that's considered halfway by the council, that is not the opinion that I seemed to gather at our last meeting, that was halfway. So my gut reaction, I don't want to speak for anybody, but since I'm asked, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we've heard a lot today, and I think there's a lot of arguments to be made that we haven't yet maybe made about some of these specific things that we've touched on. And I don't know what the proper forum would be for those discussions. Things like ADA compliance. I would say that actually there's a lot of sympathy for that idea. But we've also seen, just anecdotally, a lot of evidence to show that folks with strollers, wheelchairs, they might not use the sidewalks anyway because they are often in a state of disrepair. Even on Thayer Street, I'll see motorized wheelchairs, things like that. So again, anecdotal, I don't like using anecdotal evidence, but I think there are lots of points that can kind of maybe come to some of the things that have been mentioned. So I don't want to talk your ear off, but that's my general idea is no.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a show of hands? Would you agree, like show of hands, who agrees that would be a no? Anybody want, yes? Would this plan be considered halfway for anybody? Okay.
Follow-up question, what if the streets stayed the same width as they currently sit?
Stay the same width?
But still have the sidewalk on the one
Still have the same
side?
sidewalks. Is that to me?
It's closer.
It's
closer by about like 5 feet, if I'm not mistaken. So,
I think the general feel that folks have would be that things have worked well as they currently are for 50 years. We have 70 years, actually. We have residents. Mark has lived in this neighborhood since the first house was constructed, before any of the other houses. We've never seen pedestrian accident. People do come to walk the neighborhood. A lot of them park in the parking lots and then walk the loop that currently exists, although that ends up being in the street on Messer because there is no walkway currently. So we are all in favor of the walkway on the Hodag Park, or at least I think we're all in favor of the walkway on the Hodag Park side. But no, I don't think any of the arguments or the discussion that we've seen so far has been very convincing to us when we look at, yes, there is a city ordinance and we understand the need for a city ordinance, but the city ordinance does also allow for discretion of the council. How often, just based on talking to folks, it doesn't seem like we get this kind of response very often when we have these street projects. So if, in my opinion, if there's ever a time to maybe go off of the plan, it might be this one, when you actually have folks here participating, going about the process the right way. And so while we're, again, understanding of why this is all going this way, no, I don't think that would be considered a halfway either.
Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, I gotta say, I've been communicating with you and a couple other people on your Facebook page that you guys put together. I even joined the Facebook page just so that I could kind of gather information and understand where you guys are coming from and answer any questions from, that I could possibly float to our city administrator if I didn't know the answer off the bat. So I just wanted to tell you guys that I am super impressed how organized you are with this whole situation. I haven't seen any pitchforks and torches coming at us, but you've been having regular meetings. You've been really good with the information and the packets and all that. So I just wanted to let you guys know, and no matter how this turns out, I truly admire how you guys came together on this.
Thank you.
Mr. Jopek?
I'd like to ask a question of Mark. Sorry, Mark. Just clarifying a few things and then kind of ending it with a question that's just a general knowledge, understanding question. So the city owns the right-of-way.
Correct.
Okay. Right-of-ways are designed for future use for sidewalks, that kind of thing. What are all the uses for right-of-ways?
For utilities, streets, sidewalks.
Okay. And so I'm kind of trying to piece this together to just understand walking this through. So the city is working toward a goal of being ADA compliant. I've been a part of that. We've been a part of that, trying to make the community more walkable, more obtainable by people on feet, like my young children when we go for walks or bike rides or whatever. And so the way we do that is by making sidewalks or building sidewalks in the right-of-way. If we choose to forgo creating the sidewalk pedestrian, or forgo our goals, our pedestrian goals, and we're essentially forgoing the use of city property that the city has owned, correct? Like that's, I mean, there's the utility, and once we build the utility, then it's effectively not ours. Like we're not using it for anything.
Well, it's still your right-of-way.
Yeah, it's still a right-of-way, but the right-of-way is for utilities, and then the potential for a sidewalk.
Right.
So we are.
And it would be a similar use as what it is right now. You know, people
Okay.
use that where there's no sidewalk, they use it for their front yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If we forgo the use of the right-of-way, I guess I'm curious, how many feet in city property is being, essentially we wouldn't be utilizing?
Well, on the,
because the right-of-ways are different based on the block, right?
they're all 60-foot right-of-way.
Okay.
In this whole neighborhood. Say all the roads are 30 feet wide, 31 from the back. If we widen them to 36, that's an additional 3 feet on each side. And then you have a 5.5-foot terrace and then a 5-foot sidewalk. So you're looking at 13.5 feet that you're getting closer to the right-of-way. We keep the sidewalk 1 foot off the right-of-way. So in general, it'd be about 14.5 feet that would be unused. That's particular to every road but Evergreen. Evergreen is a special case.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, I like to walk, and I'm in favor of sidewalks. One of the things that impressed me about Rhinelander when I moved here 12 years ago was the walkability. Now, I wasn't concerned about ADA issues, but as I get older, I may be pretty soon. It really is nice to have a sidewalk at least on one side of the street and to have them continuous from one block to the next. My wife often suggests when there's something going on at Hodite Park, oh, let's walk over there. You know, it's a mile and a half, but what we found is the closer we get to Hodite Park, the fewer sidewalks there are. And I really think, you know, the ordinance is for the benefit of the whole city. The problem comes when we're trying to do something retroactive because it wasn't done according to the ordinance originally. So I want to, you know, put in something for the rest of the town too, as far as people wanting to walk, especially to the park. It sounds to me like you've done a pretty thorough job of looking at the particular situation for each street in your suggestions about which side to put a walk on, if we're going to. I had a couple of things I didn't understand, though, from the map, is why would you be removing existing sidewalk in 2 or 3 places here?
Just for consistency. So the thought was if we're going to put sidewalk on one side, Where we'd be removing it, we have in that block of Messer between Rose and Pearl, it's partial sidewalk right now on both sides. So either we'd complete that both sides or just leave it consistent, keep everything on the park side of Messer. That would mean on the block between Doyle and Pearl, the people that now have sidewalk on that east side would no longer have it, and the people on the west side would have it. So the idea is, first of all, consistency. If you got it on one side, let's just do it on one side everywhere. And flow of pedestrian traffic. So if we have it just on the park side on Messer, we want to keep that on the same side, because what you want to do is reduce the amount of crossings at intersections. So if we're doing sidewalk just on one side, it would just make sense to keep it consistently on the west side of Messer.
But you'd be removing sidewalk on both sides of Pearl Street, between Thayer and Messer?
That would go back. So on that one block, the sidewalk would go back as is on both sides.
Oh, I thought it was marked. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm misinterpreting that.
Mm-hmm. So that's the only block that currently has full sidewalk on that in that entire area.
Okay.
So it made sense just in the discussions with Mayor and Patrick. Let's just put that back as is, because that's not going to have any impact on the perceived property from the residents, because the sidewalk's going right back in the same location.
Okay. I have to say, I think this is a decent compromise solution, and it keeps us having continuous sidewalk on one side of the street. That would be adequate for us walkers, I guess. And sounds like you've have rationale for picking which side. So, thank you.
So the other thing for council to keep in mind is there are timelines. So this is a big decision and one you got to think about. But Mark, I know from a sunset date point of view, that LRIP, which is 400,000, that's the first one that would be lost, depending on the timeline. So if you could walk back, when do we need to keep this moving in order to capture all this funding? So is this something, does council need to make a decision tonight? Is this something by next meeting, 6 months? Just for we kind of know, for then you're set up for success to design this, get the applications in, and make it happen.
So ideally, we need to get the work done next year to take advantage of the LRIP grant. The other funding agencies, what we're looking at on timeline, these big projects, we generally bid out in January. We try to hit that sweet spot right after Christmas so the contractors can bid it out, so we get prices in no later than early February. The reasoning for that is if you've been involved in any of these big projects, contractors will generally like to start as early as they can, and that may mean late March, early April. So we have to have contracts in place in February so they can start scheduling, ordering parts of the whole works. The design phase that we're in right now, we're basically at a standstill. So how these work is the utilities. We have a layout and a basic design for the utilities, but until we have an alignment, the road alignment in place, we're done with design. We can't move forward because everything that we do to this point, if we shift that alignment of the road over 1 foot, we're basically starting over. Starting over is a little exaggeration, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. So right now we're not doing anything until council makes a decision. But we have a good couple months of design to do yet. So I would say as soon as possible, Mr. Mayor, but if we're to go to the next council meeting or even possibly the one after that, I think we could get it in if we're, end of October, but we'd be really crunching and we'd probably be working over Christmas I don't know if you guys care about that.
Mr. Barnett?
I personally think that we've heard from both sides of the argument a lot, and we have a lot of information. I think we have all the information we need, but I, for one, would like to kind of chew the cud, if you want to say, a little bit more on it. But I don't know if the rest of the council agrees with me, but I think we should be able to make a decision by the next meeting.
Mr. Holt?
Yeah, I agree with Tom. I think we should commit to making a decision at the next meeting, but I think that we can certainly give ourselves the next 2 weeks to deliberate and make sure that we make a good decision without making Mark and his friends work over Christmas.
Ms. Michalowski?
Yeah, I just have, I think, 2 questions for Mark. Well, one's probably not a question, more of a making sure I'm understanding this map correctly. But the folks that live in between Lakeshore and Evergreen, they're on this map, they're not having any sidewalks on their property at all, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so, all right, thanks. That clears up my other one. Thank you.
And just the thought process behind that, Carrie, is if we were to put sidewalk on the west side of Evergreen, it's not going to get maintained in the winter. I think it's a bit of a hardship for the people on Lakeshore to get to their backyards to maintain that, to plow that, because they don't have great access from Lakeshore. Their backyards are steep and there's long backyards, and just getting around there, they're going around the block. On the Lakeshore side, or on Lakeshore, on the non-lake side, we have a lot of differing slopes with the driveway. Some are really steep, some are really flat. So just making that work would be difficult with the sidewalk. So ideally that curb goes in, about where it is, or like I said earlier, we can move it a couple feet and still make it work. And there's less impact on the lake side. It'd be easier construction, easier design. That's why it was chosen that way on that map. And for people in the crowd, we do have copies of that map if anybody would like one.
I have one other question now. So the design for the utilities, if we choose not to move Evergreen over, is that what your designs are currently, or are your designs for just the utilities moving Evergreen over to make it center?
The utilities right now, we have them designed right where they're at, basically.
Right there, okay.
Yeah. So, if we always try to keep the sanitary sewer in the center of the road. A couple of reasons for that. The road is generally crowned. We like the manholes sitting there and they're not in a wheel path. So we try to do that as much as possible. On all these roads, if we shift them a couple feet, 10 feet, that's where we're moving the sanitary sewer. And then all the other utilities fall in line with that. We need a 8-foot separation from the water and the sanitary, so we need to move that water, and then the storm sewer kind of falls in place there. But the idea is we need to center the utilities on the road. We don't want storm sewer under the curb or water under the curb, because if there's any maintenance that needs to be done, now you're digging up curb to get at the water main instead of just digging up the asphalt. The other thing is the communication and power, WPS gas. They generally have all their utilities in the terrace area is where they put it. So the closer we get to them, the more difficult it is for them to make repairs or the city to make repairs. So we will always center the utilities on the road, wherever that road may be.
Okay, and then I just have one more for Chief Tonacor. My question is what is the radius of the apparatuses that you need to make the most, to make it safest?
So typically for the ladder truck is a 26-foot width is what we look for. And that you can find in an international fire code as well.
So just to kind of sum up the stuff you guys need to think about is the width of the street. How wide you want the street to be. If you're going to make it a one-way or not a one-way. If you're going to add sidewalk, location of the sidewalk, if it's on the curb or if you're going to have a terrace, how many sidewalks you're going to add. I mean, those are kind of all things, and for better or worse, 8 of you have to make that discretion. It kind of looks like we're looking to move this on to the next meeting to make a decision. I would encourage all of you to drive the neighborhood. Feel free to ask Mark, Patrick, myself. We're more than willing to attend and help, so. Yep, Patrick.
So one thing I would also encourage you to, and Mark kind of alluded to it through Mayor Hannes's question, we need to move on this. This isn't something that we can continue to punt and punt and punt and punt and punt. To have Mark work on this to get everything all together so we get the best bids available, we need to have this done, so a decision needs to be made. So my recommendation would be at next meeting, need to come away with something. And I would also tell you a couple of other things. Number one, I've learned a long time ago, if you try to make everybody happy, you'll make nobody happy. I can tell you, no matter what you're going to choose, somebody's going to be unhappy with this. Be it some city staff won't be happy with it. Some of the residents out there won't be happy with it. Some of you may not be all that happy with it. So just kind of understand that it's one of those difficult decisions you just have to make. So I wish you luck.
And it looks like Matt Campbell would like to speak.
Thank you for the opportunity one more time just to talk about something. Just to the last point that Patrick made, you're always going to make somebody unhappy. That's probably fair, right? But what I want to bring up the downside of a format like this and having somebody like me represent a group of people is that we've heard a lot about the benefits of a sidewalk, why you generally would want to put a sidewalk in. But we haven't heard from anybody that specifically is from the neighborhood that actually wants a sidewalk. I'm pretty sure every house that has a sidewalk going in front of it, either in this on this map, has signed a petition asking you specifically not to put in a sidewalk for various reasons. We've tried to make this briefer for you by having somebody like me coming up and speaking to you, but every single person here could talk to you for a long time about how it affects their specific situation. So what do we actually know will happen should we include these sidewalks? You're going to piss off a lot of people. What will happen if you don't include the sidewalks? People probably won't notice a difference because that's how it's been, and it's worked well for 70 years. So I just want to keep that, make sure you keep that in mind, that so far, every single person here has been wanting to talk to you and wanting to share you the story, and you've been really good at listening, which I appreciate. But it's difficult in these kinds of forums to hear each and every one. But I can tell you, there's 50, 60 homeowners that know that they're being affected. Even if there's not a sidewalk put in front of their yard, they're losing extra trees that we've kind of heard about, all of the different things we've talked about, quieter, and all those things that I think that you should make sure you consider. So I'm trying to make like a little bit of a closing argument here. I guess that's the downside of going first. But I think, I don't know if there's a way to hear these people, if they should email you, if it should be public comment at the next meeting. We've done many of that, but I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that a lot of what we're talking about with putting in the sidewalks are hypotheticals. And we've even seen that it's not necessarily something that people want to use. Me in particular, with strollers, I got 4 kids. We almost never walk on the sidewalks in Rhinelander. When we walk from our house down Eagle Street or down Mason Street to get downtown, it's just almost impossible to do without having to at some point step off, have things fall off my stroller. So again, anecdotal from me, but we know that there is actual statistics right here of people that are going to be affected. And I want you to make sure that you remember that as you're thinking about this the next 2 weeks, that yes, there is definitely benefits in some ways with this project. And there's certainly positives to including sidewalks that could come from that. But we know that there's absolute definite negatives. Thank you.
Ms. Michalowski.
I just wanted to say that I do appreciate all of you coming to these meetings and voicing your opinion, which we do take into a lot of consideration. But I also want to make note for those that maybe aren't here and are watching this via streaming services, is that we have all received emails from your neighbors that want sidewalks as well. So to say that nobody wants sidewalks in your neighborhood isn't totally accurate, because I know I've received a few, which I believe every council member is copied in on those emails, that they do want sidewalks to make it safer. So I just wanted the general public to know that that's also out there, and we have received those comments as well.
Mr. Jopek?
Just asking for clarification for next week. When that comes up for vote, how is that going to be conducted? Is it going to be by plan type, and that's how we're going, like, just so we're aware of what we're...
So what it's going to be is council's going to give us recommendations. So we're going to be looking at, I mean, if you want to pick option 1 or 2 that was presented by Matt, the one that Mark presented tonight or the previous one, you could definitely do that. If you want to do a hybrid, so I would almost suggest if there's something you're leaning towards, maybe work with Patrick to get a motion pre-made, just to make it easy on everything. But pretty much we're looking for a direction of how to move forward, whatever that may be. And I mean, there's tons of options on the table. I mean, one of the options you guys could pick is just cancel the project, move elsewhere, or not do it. That is a valid option. So that's something for you guys to decide, but it's going to be, we're looking for direction of how you want us to proceed, just based on the timetable, you know, that we got to make a decision relatively quick.
Thank you.
So, okay, Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, you gave a list of things a few minutes ago that you thought we ought to be considering. Could you send us all that list?
Absolutely.
Or others that you might think of?
Absolutely. So normally I would say no, but I'm going to let you speak, sir, just because technically on the agenda it was only Matt Campbell. But I'm going to assume if I were to call on Matt Campbell, he would yield time to you, thus, yeah, and he already gave me the thumbs up. So that's why I'm letting you speak. But then I would be looking for a motion from council of how to proceed, if it's to table this to the next meeting or what have you. So.
Thank you. My name is Mark Wittock. I've lived on a home on Evergreen Court for over 50 years. The one thing that I have not heard the word mentioned tonight to go along with this reconstruction period is landscaping. I don't know how many of you have gone over on Evergreen Court, but you will find that there's only one property on land and on Evergreen Court that is flat. Every other property on that street has levels which range from 3, 4, 5, 20 feet, which means that if you cut out 16 feet into those properties, mine, I'll just use an example. If you cut out 16 feet in my property, I'm going to have to build a 5-foot retaining wall at a minimum to retain my present landscaping. If you flatten that out with a sidewalk there, I'm going to have to re-landscape my whole property. And everybody else, except for that one person, is going to have to do the same. Now, who's going to pay for that? I've got a tree I just planted in my middle of my yard a year ago, $500. That's going to be jeopardized. I will not be able to re-landscape my property without losing that tree. All my bushes on the side between my properties. And as Tom said, if you put a sidewalk down Evergreen Court, you're going to lose at least 13 evergreen trees, plus all the ones with leaves on. What do you call the trees that got leaves? I don't know. But there's another half a dozen or 20. Certainly they're older trees, but they're part of the landscape there. A sidewalk is not necessary. It is not needed. If you flatten that out, I'm going to have to go and hire somebody to shovel that sidewalk for the next remaining part of my life. I'm going to be 90 years old next year. And everybody else on Evergreen Court is going to have to shovel that snow which is plowed up on that sidewalk all winter long for the next 50, 100 years. And you're going to have to shovel it over the 5-foot retaining wall. There's no reason for a sidewalk. A sidewalk, and then you mentioned that you walk on the sidewalks. If you come into our neighborhood and watch the people who walk through our neighborhood, they may walk with a person alongside of them, they may be walking their pet. They could not walk on a sidewalk together. They want to walk on the street where they can walk, talk, walk through the park. They would not walk on the sidewalk. That sidewalk on Evergreen Court is not wanted, it's not needed, it's going to be useless, it's going to be a strain on the homeowners, it's going to be a strain on the city for the next 100 years. I wish that I could ask each one of you members to come down and look at the property on Evergreen Court and to see what landscaping is going to be necessary. Re-landscaping is going to be necessary to put in an unneeded sidewalk. I certainly hope you'll come and walk with me up on that street and see what sometime in the next 2 weeks. We don't need a sidewalk on Evergreen Court. It's not going to change the neighborhood, except for the worst. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So then we'll be looking for a motion to table.
Holt, I'll make a motion to table this and bring it back for a decision at the next council meeting.
Mikulowski, second.
Motion second. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes the table. Since I'm assuming most of the people in the room will probably be leaving at this point, I'm going to do a 5-minute recess. That way, if anyone needs to use the bathroom, they can. Gives the group time to leave. We reconvene at 52. Okay, it is 7:54. We're back from recess. Okay, we just finished up 8. Moving on to 9, proclamations. There are none. Thank God. Moving on to... yeah, well, no.
It is in the minutes, yes it is.
Crap. Yep, there goes my election. Moving on to 10, consent agenda. We have 3 items on here, which is meeting minutes from the Common Council, Planning Commission minutes, and then a CSM for 664 Acadia Lane.
Holt, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Anderson, second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Kerry Mikulowski.
Aye.
Bob Luder.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11A. This will be a reading, first and or second reading, depending on your guys' motion. Regarding ordinance 2024-7, I refer to our city administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Yeah, so council had directed me to come up with an ordinance for the renaming of public spaces, streets, what have you. So what I have here is basically a lot of things that I found and seem to make a lot of sense here. Ran it past Steve, heard nothing back as far as anything negative. I know Alderperson Anderson has some questions on it, so yield to you, sir.
Yep.
Yeah, I was impressed how well you followed the suggestion that it be succinct. Thanks for your work on that. I just had a couple of rewordings, or not rewordings, but just things that I thought should be deleted to make it flow better. But otherwise, I like what you got there. So I'd like to approve adoption for first reading of proposed ordinance 2024-07 with the changes that I have on the little sheet I passed out.
Is there a second?
Yeah, Holt, I'll second that.
So motion second. Any discussion at Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, I wanted to thank Patrick for his hard work on this. I know for a fact that he did a lot of research and looked at a lot of different ordinances to put this together, and to follow the direction of keep it simple, he did extremely well. And I mean that as a compliment, by the way. But I think nothing in there leads to any open to interpretations, and I'm really happy that he was able to do this so quickly and diligently. So I'm all in favor for everything that is about to be voted on.
Any other discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, take the roll call.
Kerry Mikulowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Bob Luder.
Aye. First reading passes. Moving on to 11B. This would be an ordinance change of 2024-8, referred to our city administrator.
I'm actually going to talk to you a little bit here. So basically, this is a liquor licensing, and I'm actually going to have Austin kind of run you through it. This was Austin's project. He worked on it with Steve Sorensen. So, Austin, go ahead.
I'm definitely not taking all the credit. Mariah Keane, our deputy clerk, helped out extensively with this. All right. So, this is an ordinance really revamping our liquor licensing for the city of Rhinelander. So why are we revamping it now? Well, the state legislature passed Act 73 late last year to go in effect this year, actually go in effect I think April 1st, that completely revamped state laws regarding liquor licensing and laws surrounding the regulation of alcohol. So with that, it came with many, many changes to the actual applications that the state gives us to license these establishments, as well as renewing their licenses. So this kind of gave us the opportunity to update our ordinances to match these state statutes. And through our research, we also found a lot of other things that we weren't in compliance with state statute, but it's been a very long time since we've updated these liquor license ordinances. So that's kind of what we dived into for all of these. All these changes have been looked over by the city attorney. So we've worked extensively with him to make sure that these were all legal and sounded correct. So kind of just running through some notable changes here. You can see in the packet the first document is the clean version of the ordinance. And then after that, you can see where we did all the strike-throughs and all the additions and everything. So it's just some notable changes throughout there. I think there's about 16 pages worth of things. But the notable ones, we made the application and license fees to have a liquor license prorated. That is what state statute has had. We have not had it where we could prorate it. So this is going to give the opportunity for businesses who open up halfway through the licensing year that they're not paying this full amount just to turn around again to pay that full amount when the renewal comes. We added definitions to the various license types, which is really, really helpful for prospective businesses that are trying to figure out, okay, how the heck do I open a bar in the city of Rhinelander? Now our ordinance lines out what each license is in the application process for that. One big thing that we really wanted to do with this ordinance was taken from a lot of other municipalities, but we've created more succinct deadlines and created a late application fee. As you know, every license for any business in the city of Rhinelander expires on June 30th, so it needs to be renewed by July 1st so they have a license. But this is not only the liquor licensing, this is for arcade licensing, theater licensing, mobile home licensing. Every license comes up at the same time. And with these new law changes, it is a very, very extensive renewal process compared to before. So we need a lot of time that not only the clerk's office to review these applications, but they have to be approved by the fire department, the police department, and inspections. And if these businesses wait until the last second to turn this in, and there are issues found with it, they might be going into July 4th and Hodak Country Festival without a liquor license, which is, for most of these places, their most profitable time of the year. So now we are moving this application process a lot earlier in the year and sending these applications out so these businesses have enough time to turn everything in and get these fixes done if there are fixes. We've also moved around some of the ordinances to group the types of licenses together, so you're not having to read through the entire liquor ordinance to find stuff like picnic licenses or Class C wine licenses. We also removed mentions of defunct departments and committees and replaced those with the Common Council. So looking through this ordinance, we found a lot of old committees that have not met in decades, so we've replaced those with the Common Council. Change various languages in here to match state statute. We actually copy and pasted a lot straight from state statute and the Department of Revenue, as well as using other municipalities like the city of Green Bay to get a better ordinance in place. Another big thing we added is adding stipulations regarding dormant licenses. This is to avoid businesses getting approved pending a fix, and that fix never comes, but they still have a license that we aren't able to take back. And this also allows us to kind of say, like, you need to get these fixes done as soon as possible, otherwise you're not able to sit on a liquor license, as well as it removes the possibility of someone saying, oh, I'm going to open this bar, and then they don't open the bar, but they still have that liquor license for that entire year. And under previous ordinances, they could sit on that license and nobody new could open up using that license, especially as we approach reaching our total quota for those liquor licenses. So those are just some of the notable changes here. I did have Alderperson Kramer point out that on page 50 of our packet, under subcategory E, line 5, it should be listed as if and not in. So there's just one Scrivener error there that we found, so I just got to change that one letter that will actually make that line stating that businesses can sell liquor to go if it has a sealed container, which is what state statute says.
Mr. Holt?
Yeah, really fantastic work. A great presentation. Revising an awful lot of necessary language. I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the first reading of proposed ordinance 2024-808, an ordinance to amend section 4.05.01 of the City of Rhinelander Code of Ordinances.
Joe Pack, second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Was there any discussion on said motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson?
Aye.
Stephen Jopek?
Aye.
Luke Kramer?
Aye.
Carrie Michalowski?
Aye.
Bob Luter?
Aye.
Thomas Barnett?
Aye.
David Holt?
Aye.
Leanne Felton?
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 12, there's none. Moving on to 13A, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-1-1. Looks like it's a pay app for the lift station done on Pelham for $1,824. Any discussion by council? Nope. If someone would like to make a motion to approve.
Barnett, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-121, approving pay application number 1 from August Winter and Sons for work completed on the 2023 Pelham Street Lift Station project for $1,824.
Hold second.
Motion second. Any discussion on the motion?
I'm just making a note that we are all looking at Mark and getting a thumbs up that all is well. It is ready to be paid out. Okay.
Cool. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Kerry Mikulowski.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 13B, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-122. This would be a change order number 7 for the Oneida project for $3,995. Thumbs up again?
Jopek move to approve resolution.
I hate to ruin your rhythm, Mr. Mayor, but I do have one thing to add on this. Both of these changes are due to other contractors, so Bug Tussle damaged some sidewalk, so did Ottinger. So both of these change orders are reimbursable, so the city will be sending out invoices for these.
Jopek moved to approve proposed resolution 2024-122 approving change order number 7 to the Oneida Avenue Area Utility and Streets Improvement Project in the amount of $3,995.33.
Hold second.
Motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Kerry Mikulowski.
Aye.
Motion passes. 13C, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-123. This is pay app number 12 to Musson Brothers. This one we should probably have you tell us actually what we're paying for, I suppose, since it's over $200,000.
I'm sorry, I wasn't even paying attention there. This is just work for completed. If you looked at the pay request, this is all on Grant Street. So this is work completed through the 23rd, or I'm sorry, through the 6th of September. So it does not include concrete or any building of roads. This is mainly utility work for Grant Street. That change order that was just approved is included in this. There's 5% retainage. So the requested amount is $239,675.32, and we recommend payment in that amount.
Mikulowski, I'll make a motion to approve proposed resolution 2024-123, approving the application for payment number 12 from Musson Brothers in the amount of $239,675.32.
Hold second.
Motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Kerry Mikulowski.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett. Aye. Bob Luter.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 13D, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-124. This would be purchasing a new work truck for the city parks. I believe the funding is coming from the borrowing from a year ago.
In 2023 borrowing, we had set aside $150,000 for the splash pad at Pioneer Park. Obviously, that's now looks to be put in by Kiwanis. And we also had $30,000 for a Soraka field. This one and another one coming up of Jeremy's, both of this looks to take that funding and move it over. Part of this is from that. So Justin Ernst, our streets foreman, but also our guru on all vehicles, searched out some quotes for it and believes that this is the best one available for Badger Chevrolet. It's available right now too. Correct, Justin? Okay.
Holt, I'll make a motion to approve proposed resolution 2024-125, approving the request from the Parks Department to reallocate $132,000 to complete Phase 2. I'm sorry, I skipped lines. Thank you, Tom. For the purchase of a 2025 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 four-wheel drive work truck for the City Parks Department from Badger Chevrolet for $42,305.50.
Anderson, second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Not seeing none. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Bob Luder.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to E, discuss under action proposed resolution 2024-125. This is kind of a phase 2 of Hill Creek. It's in your packet. Looks like it's a construction of a building of sorts, plus some trails.
Lots of trails. So yeah, Justin's looking to use that remaining money that we talked about from borrowing to start on phase 2 of the trails out at Heel Creek.
Barnett, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-125. That's the right one, right?
Yes.
Approving the request from the Parks Department to reallocate $132,000 to complete Phase 2 of the Northwoods Heel Creek project.
Kramer, second.
Motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson. Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Bob Luder.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to F, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-126. So this is kind of a unique scenario because it's dependent on an ordinance that you did the first reading passing. So either we could table this item or approve it pending on the passage of that resolution. So it's kind of up to your guys what you want to do. Mr. Anderson?
I move to table it till the next meeting.
Hold second.
Okay, motion second. Not seeing any discussion. Clerk, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those who oppose? Abstain? Motion passes to table. Moving on to G, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-127. This is amending a development agreement with T&H Holding. So this is the one that came across your guys' desk last time. There's some minor issues we had to adjust. Attorney looked at it. We made stuff more black and white. That way everyone knows their responsibility, and it's just, I think, better.
Yeah, there's basically 4 changes that go in here. The first one is under recitals, whereas we had 8.81 acres of property, it's 10.73. The second one was, we talked about when the interest starts accruing, and it's at the formal groundbreaking. The third thing was we named Tim Thorson as the contact instead of, I think it was Lori Hogue. And then the fourth one was actually related to the second one, the schedule under Exhibit 8, that's changed. That's it. Those are the changes, and nothing really terribly outlandish.
Barnett, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-127, approving amendments to the developers agreement with T&H Holdings LLC.
Hold second.
Oh, gotta be quicker, Bob. Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Anderson?
Well, I guess when the project commences, maybe that's a better way of saying it. There will be no ribbon or anything, but once they start the project commencing, that's, I guess.
Gerald, can you put your mic on, please?
Sorry, I just wondered if that was something that they should manipulate one way or the other, either not start doing anything or start doing it before a formal groundbreaking.
Because this is a pay-go, it's in their best interest to start it as soon as possible. The sooner that starts producing tax dollars for the TID, the sooner they can start being paid per the agreement. So, I mean, I suppose they could, but I think it's in their best interest. And after speaking with them, Wendy and Chris and Mayor Hannes and I all spoke with them. They want to get moving as fast as possible.
Let's get them going.
It sounded like their hope was to get the base work done this year and finish up the road next spring. So, okay, motion second. Any more discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Bob Luder.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to H, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-128. So this is pretty much allowing an easement for this property on Navajo.
Barnett, I make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-129. Approving, authorizing, and directing the mayor to sign an easement agreement with WPS for city property RH 183-2.
Hold second.
So there's technically a motion and a second. Just for is this actually an ordinance or more of a resolution?
Involves real estate.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that's a typo. Should say resolution. I apologize.
Okay, so since the motion was an ordinance.
Yeah, I'll amend my motion.
And the second amendment?
Accept.
Okay, so that has now been done. Any discussion on the resolution? Mr. Anderson?
Mike?
They seem to be alleyways.
Are these both?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're vacant.
Alleyways?
Yeah, they're vacant.
Yeah, if you go on GIS, it's kind of a unique scenario, but it's by the old Associated Bank, which was the National Bank, the older side. It's within that parking lot there, but it's unique, the boundary lines.
Same with the other one?
Yes. Yep. So, yeah, any other discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to I. Discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2024-129. Very similar to the one you guys just approved, just a different parcel number. Mr. Anderson? Oh, sorry, Mr. Anderson had his hand up.
I move approval of proposed resolution 2024-129, authorizing the mayor to sign easement agreement with Wisconsin Public Service for city property RH 150-4.
Hold second.
Motion second. Any discussion on said motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Bob Luter.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, moving on to J, which is a discuss and/or action of inspection department contracts with surrounding townships. If you guys are not aware, we actually provide a service to some of our surrounding townships. I believe it's 11 at this point, but I may be incorrect there. Every year it comes up, and by the end of October, each party, meaning the township in question and us, get to decide if we want to extend it. I believe and I'm going to rely on our fire chief for some of this since he oversees it, one of the townships decided to go a different route, which would be the township of Newbold. We're looking at what to do with the remainder. We currently contract out 90% of this work with RC Inspections, Rick Clem. They have informed us they have no longer want to do that type of work for us. So at the end of this year, we will not have a contractor to do this work. So this is something we're kind of looking from a direction from you guys of, is this something we want to renew these contracts? Is this something we want to maybe go a different direction? Or something in the middle? So I don't know if our chief from our fire department has anything you'd want to add, or, you know, this is a starting point.
So I just want to make a couple things clear first before I get going on this. There were some meetings on this that I was not a part of, so I don't know the whole story here in the background. So the inspections for all townships right now to year to date has pulled in $93,000 for all the townships. That's from that we have paid RC inspections $42,691.45 as of today, which is in my viewpoint. We have tried one time to fill that position with someone who we tried to do a hybrid with them as code enforcement along with the residential inspector credentials, and that person was not a fit for the city. whether we have the townships or not, we still have a statutory requirement to provide these inspections for the city of Rhinelander. How do we want to do that is kind of the main question, I think. Whether we have the townships or not, we still have to be able to do it for the city. So there is a couple of options that we have as a hybrid. We could contract out for electrical. So we have to do construction, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical for all residential and commercial permits, new builds, and any kind of work that's done in that. So normally what you find in larger municipalities is somebody has each one of those qualifications, or maybe two of those qualifications, instead of one person having all four of those qualifications, all those certifications. What we've been looking for is that one person that has, it's what, like Tom Wadick has always had, is all four, and Terry Williams had as well, was all four. They took those when they brought that program into the city and started doing that with the townships. They took on those credentials to be able to support that. So that's where we're having the hard time figuring that out, is finding that position. Even so, really what it's come down to with RC is RC doesn't want a piece of the pie anymore, they want the whole pie. So, which, you know, makes sense, they're doing a lot of the work, but we're doing all the administrative work on it. So we do all the permitting, we do all the work on the front end of it, they go out and do the physical inspection, and then we issue the UDCs for all new builds and electrical inspections out in the townships. So that's what we're giving them right now. If we're unable to do that, that's fine. I don't mind shedding the townships. I don't think it's a horrible thing. We do make revenues on that, so we are looking at losing revenue on the general fund for that if we do it. But we also still need to figure out what are we going to do for the city. So for the city in the year 2023, for new UDC inspections.
Well, but I just want to be clear. So from an agenda which has been posted to the media, this is regarding contracts with townships. So, I mean, these are kind of connected, but the matter at hand is just the townships tonight, because that's all that's been posted for the media and on the agenda. So just something to keep in mind to keep us out of trouble, so.
Well, that's fine. It all links in. The same person does it with the townships and the city.
Correct, but do we do commercial in the townships?
We don't do commercial in the townships.
So it's just residential townships is what we're discussing with the contracts.
We also do them in the city.
Correct, but that's not what was posted to the media and to the public. It was only the townships and the contracts.
I just want to make sure that you're as informed as possible. So for the townships then, to date this year, we have made $92,397.90 to the townships. And we have paid out to Clem the $42,000 that I've mentioned. Yes.
Is the 92 after the 42 has been subtracted?
No.
No, okay. So that'd be...
And that's just as of August.
Yeah.
Too,
Yep.
So we still have
Yep,
some
yep.
time left.
Just
And
making sure.
We're approximately 81 permits behind right now, because our inspections division is really stuck. We got a lot going on.
Ms. Anderson?
If we continue these contracts with the towns, we would have to go and find another contractor to do these things until we have somebody and cover all of it.
Right. So some of the conversations that we had with RC was that they would hold on with us if we brought somebody in that they feel is worthy of doing the townships. But I would imagine we would see the townships just kind of turn to RC anyway in the future. So all of our contracts go through December 31st of this year. We have until October 15th to give them notice whether we want to renegotiate or not.
I think Mr. Luder had his hand up.
Yeah, so the numbers you rattled off, like 42,000, does that include the fees that we would pay, like say Tom Wadick who is on contract to do that work as well, so that's
Yeah.
inclusive?
Yep.
So then my next question would be, what would be the city impact for hiring that person? And would it be beneficial to keep I mean, if we're gonna get somebody that's all-inclusive, that's gonna come at a cost.
Right.
So would the city be able to afford hiring a person with losing the townships around it?
Then I'd have to talk about just the city.
I'm sorry. It's still your time.
Okay, Mr. Holt.
That was going to be my question. I hear what you're saying, Chris, and that's a valid point. But if this is something that needs to be discussed inclusively with the city and the townships, then we need to bring this back for the next meeting and have it agendized so that we don't have any issue of boundaries of what we can talk about.
And that might be the best approach, because if I'm not mistaken, between now and our next council meeting, we have the budget hearing, which is public safety. Inspections is part of that. So at that point, we could present inspections with townships from a budget point of view and without. That way you get to kind of see the even dollar amounts for both, because there's multiple line items that are affected by if we decide to make a move here. So that might be the best way to approach. Mr. Barnett?
You just answered my question.
Okay, Mr. Anderson?
I move to table this matter until the next meeting with an expanded agenda to cover the whole topic.
Hold second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Not seen. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Bob Luder.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes the table. Moving on to K. Discuss and/or actions, the Sex Offender Registry Appeal Board. So this is one we've been trying to find members for. Up until recent, there's been no one interested. We now have one person of interest, which is not even close to having a quorum or a working board. So we're kind of coming to you guys to see what to do. There have been multiple boards that have been absorbed into the Common Council, so this is an option. There's been some thought of maybe this should be combined with the Ethics Committee as an option. So we're just kind of looking to see what would be appropriate. One of the concerns is, in a typical chain of events, if someone comes to this board and are not happy with the results of the board, they would then appeal to you guys, the Common Council. So if you guys take on this board, they don't really have that second step, because they would be appealing to the same board. So that's one of the thoughts of, should we make this where maybe the 5 out of the 8 of you are on this board? You know, similar to like a planning commission. Should we make this combined with a different board, or what have you? So, Mr. Barnett?
I feel that if we have no interest in people joining a committee or a board, or whatever label we want to put to it, then we shouldn't even mess around with it. It should just come to the Common Council. I'd be in favor of just absorbing it into the council, since there's no interest in people wanting to sit on that committee.
Ms. Mikulowski?
I think for the purpose of being able to appeal, it would be better off to send it to the ethics board and combine it with ethics, so that they still have the right to appeal to us.
Mr. Holt?
How many people are needed for this?
I believe by statute 5.
Yes, it's on page of here. Okay, it's on page 223. Right now by ordinance says membership of the Sex Offender Residence Board. The board shall consist of 5 citizens.
How many are on the ethics board?
5 would be a full board with, I believe we have, what, 2 alternates?
I believe that's correct. Okay. Yeah, I would probably be in favor of, I agree with Carrie, I'd be in favor of doing that, so that an appeal could come before the council.
So the only other thing to keep in mind is if we go the route of combining these boards, one, I believe that's an ordinance change, so that's something that would have to come in front of this body. And two, there's the risk, who knows if it would happen, if the people serving on the ethics board will remain. You know, they may decide not to want to serve, which we do have actually one opening on that board as we sit. So just stuff to keep in mind as you guys make a decision. Mr. Jopek?
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm a little biased because I sit on the ethics board as the advisory person. That does run into the issue of would people want to stick around for that? I think just putting it onto the ethics committee when they agreed to something and then just saying, hey, by the way, you're doing this too, I think deserves a little discussion. Additionally, they're knee deep in like dealing with the ethics side. I guess I wish Steve were here because Steve is big in training us in ethics, and I think I don't know what he would say, but I guess I'm curious why we choose ethics to do that. I get it. I'm for the appeal process. I'm just I don't want to rush to be like just put it on this council or this committee when maybe they have other things they're trying to do. And also they have turnover as well. Like we just lost one. We're trying to get others. This is my call to everybody. Like you want to join and serve the community, now's the time to do it. Like these spots are open. So anyways.
And one of the concerns I think Steve would have is if there was an ethical issue with that process, the board can investigate itself. You know, so you're adding more to the purview of that board, which opens the door to more concern. So I think Mr. Anderson was first.
Yeah, I'm going to move to table this till the next meeting.
Okay, so move to table. Any second?
Second.
Okay. So just to be clear for a point, is there anything you want us to do for tabling, or are you just waiting for Steve Sorensen, or?
Well, I think we ought to get an opinion from him on it and see if there are any other alternatives. Seems like there are problems with all the ones we've discussed so far. And have some time to think about the ins and outs of it.
Mr. Jopek?
Yeah, I guess seconding it. I'm not.
There's a
motion.
We cannot discuss.
You're correct.
We can't discuss a motion to table.
Yep, good point. So with that, clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Bob Luder.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 14, which would be closed session. Would someone like to take us into closed session?
Jopek moved to go into closed session. Motion to move into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 authorizes a closed session for conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. Discussion shall involve recommendation of tax assessment challenge by property owner of tax parcel RH 91040915.
Mikulowski second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Luke Kramer.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett. Aye. Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Bob Luder.
Aye.
Motion passes. It is 8:33. We are going into closed session. It is 8:59 and we are back from closed session, and I would gladly like to report that there is no action to be had. With that, 15, actions on closed sessions, none. 16, communications. I refer to our city administrator.
Yeah, we're going to be having another citywide cleanup. This is Justin Ernst and the folks down at Streets Department have kind of spearheaded this. So I'm going to have another one. We're going to look to have this every year, 2 of these. The thought here is to try to help give people an opportunity to clean out their basements, clean out their yards, clean out their garages. All the stuff is online. What you can bring down, what you can't. This is only for city residents. So only for people who live within the city of Rhinelander. We had a question of whether it was anybody who had a 54501 zip code. So no, it's only city residents. So, but again, it's online. It's also on our Facebook page.
Ms. Felton?
Does this include the leaf cleanup and brush?
No.
Fall cleanup?
No, this is like the cleanup we had in the spring there.
Okay. Moving on to 17, future agenda items. We have conditional use permits by Mr. Jopek, and we have fee waiving by Ms. Mikulowski. Anything anyone would like to add? Okay, not seeing. Our next plan common council meeting will be October 14th, 2024 at 6 p.m. right here at City Hall. It is exactly 9 o'clock, meeting adjourned.